I'm Justin Snyder.
And I'm Stephanie Greenwood Snyder.
We're just an average, everyday couple.
But over the years, we've seen the incredible importance of building community together.
We'll be talking with friends and experts about their stories and experiences to help us learn and grow.
We don't want to just survive through life.
We want to intentionally thrive.
This is The Intentional Thriver. Hi, guys. Welcome back to The Intentional Thriver.
Hello.
The podcast where we ask the question, are you surviving or thriving?
That's the question.
Yeah. I know you like to say thriving or surviving, but I like to say surviving or thriving.
Tomato.
Okay, cool. Well, this is our episode, which instead of a 7x7, we decided to do a 6x6.
That's right.
So shorten it a little bit for you, and also a season finale. This is
kind of
the end of the season. Is it not?
Well, but we have like three.
Well, we have specials, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna have 3 specials.
Generally, though, with the season, you only have like 1 special or 3 specials. So I mean, this is the
3
last
times more special
6x6
of the season.
So
are
sure,
we gonna
we'll call
put
it
the
a finale.
specials within season 1 or season 2?
Season 1.
Okay. Well, there you have it. So we have 3 specials coming your way between now and the end of the year. And Justin, when are those specials going to come out?
Well, the plan is that there will be one the week before Halloween, one the week before Thanksgiving, and one the week before Christmas. I'm actually really excited about the Christmas one.
Yeah.
That one's going to be about like processing and working through emotions.
Ooh, who has emotions during the holidays and Christmas time?
No, definitely not I.
Even the emotions you don't know about. I think that's something and I'm getting ahead of ourselves. Something that we've discovered is how much suppression of emotions or lack of knowledge of your emotions really plays into the way you utilize them.
It's true. There is a lot that goes on underneath the surface. Surprise. Okay, so your mic is working this week.
I am
working. So that is good. So I'm actually going to let you run the show this time since I had to talk more last time.
We looked at the percentage of talking from the edit last time, right? And
from the transcript.
I think I was at 17%.
Yes. Granted, because your audio was so much lower, I don't think it registered.
I
don't think it registered.
My ums and yes. Yeah. Just kidding. Awesome. No, we are up and working, and Justin did a meticulous scan of everything because you're right. When you hyperfixate about one problem, you let the other problem slide through.
It's true.
That's a lesson to be learned in extra on this episode.
Yes, that is a bonus.
Okay, well, let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
I have the timer queued up for 6 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. I am going to hit start. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is episode 19 with the social media from the perspective of an influencer.
Ooh.
And Paul did such a great job, and it was just so wonderful to check up on him and to hear how he's doing. We go way back, went to college together, but I've known him since he was wee little. A wee child. I didn't want to call him a babe. So anyway, we love Paul, and we were just so thankful for his transparency and honesty about mental health around an influencer on social media.
Yeah.
And I think that influencers are becoming more transparent about that. And if anybody's been on YouTube or follow influencers, a lot of them are apologizing for things these days, it feels like. And call that cancel culture, call that mental health, call that whatever you have, and they're all different reasons for apologies, of course. But what I'm trying to get at is that Paul is taking his mental health seriously, and that he is taking the time that he is on social media seriously. And some of his hacks, was to totally ignore his messages, which, hey, if it works for him,
100%.
and doesn't feel like he's missing out on stuff, or he has a team to handle it, even better. I thought that was clever.
Yeah, and I think it's understanding and diagnosing, like, what do you want out of social media?
Yeah.
Because again, social media is not going to set boundaries with you. It's going to take every inch that it can get. Like, you have to be the one. And again, there's some very wonderful things about social media, and there's some really horrible things
But it's
about
here to
social media.
stay.
Oh,
So
100%. So again, it's
yeah.
not saying
Mhm.
go and delete all your social media,
Right.
go and delete. I mean, if that's
Or
what you decide to do,
I
great,
have
wonderful,
recently
go for
deleted
it.
it off my phone because I'm
Yeah.
on my computer, I do it for work, I do it for this. So I feel like,
But
okay,
you haven't like
no,
deleted your
no accounts,
accounts
no,
and
yeah, because I
everything
need it
like
for
that.
work and for this,
Right,
but
right.
the app from my phone, so it's an extra step to actually not mindlessly scroll,
Yeah.
So that's something I've done recently.
Mhm.
And the funny thing is, I was talking to one of my friends, and we both deleted our apps the same day. Like we both
Oh,
just were
nice.
like, "I just need to be done with this."
So then how did you communicate?
I know. Well, in person, like normal friends, like real friends.
Yes.
We'll get to that. We're going to talk about friendships later.
That's right.
But I think that Paul communicating the pros and cons of social media,
Yeah.
how he got into it, his journey, but also some of those real struggles of a creator and a
Mhm.
creative creator, right? I think most influencers would call themselves creatives, and it's a great
Yeah.
outlet for them. But Paul is truly a
Yeah.
creative.
And like I said before, I think it's within social media, it's figuring out what do you want out of it?
Mhm.
Are you looking to make it a livelihood? Are you looking just to share your passion? I mean, again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves either, but like when we found out about that mic problem
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
episode 24, like we had to make the decision like, oh man, dang, do we go back and re-record that episode,
What we were
or
gonna do, yeah.
do we, which would have eaten time that we could have like just kind of hung out and chilled, because I mean it is work by for sure to do these episodes, and we're like, nope. we're just gonna hang out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I 100% stand by that decision.
Yeah.
Like I think that was the right decision
For our
for
time and
us and
mental
for our
health.
time and mental
Yeah.
health. 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which
And
is hard for Justin to say
it
because
is very hard for me to
Justin
say.
wants it to be excellent. Like, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that to you. And actually, I think you've come a long way to let that happen.
Oh
I
yeah,
think there was a time where that would
I
have
don't care
just.
about this podcast. I'm
No, I don't
totally
mean it like
kidding. I
that.
actually
And
care
I
too
very
much
much.
sometimes.
And so, I know I didn't mean that as a slam. I
No,
meant that as
I know.
like you really have come far because there was a time where that would have eaten you up inside
Yeah.
and you wouldn't have let it go and you would have, given yourself some negative mental
Well,
messages.
fortunately, I've been working night shifts on that Netflix show, so
So
like,
that's helped your mental health.
well, it's so the time I would have spent like not being able to sleep
You
because
have
of it
been
eating it
working.
up inside. I've been working
That's
instead,
right.
so I just stuff it deep down inside my little emotional box, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kidding. This is exactly what not to do. I'm like giving you an example. I don't. Yeah.
Stay tuned for our Christmas special.
I'm kidding. I'm
No,
kidding.
I do think that that was a huge growth place for you, and I think that that's very cool. The other thing I wanted to touch on about Paul before we're done is the fact about being kind, like
Yeah,
his
that's
whole
good.
process about wanting to work with people that are kind, wanting to be kind and be known as being kind. It's a dog eat dog world out there. I mean,
Well,
especially.
and social media is just horrible when it comes to this.
But
Like,
they put on a face like
seriously.
collab and this and that, and I'm sure there's so many genuine people out there.
Well, I'm saying like in comments and stuff like that.
Oh,
Like when people can hide behind a
yeah,
keyboard,
yeah.
they feel it's
Empower.
harder for them to feel the consequences or the ramifications of what they say to people.
Mhm.
Like, man, I yeah, we that's a whole nother episode in and of itself.
Yeah,
Like
comments.
how to like we live in a very polarized world,
Mhm.
and it's becoming even more polarized, and in my opinion, and I think social media is a contributor to that.
Mhm.
So we gotta figure out how
Right.
to be
And how to
better.
help our kids,
Yeah. Yep.
navigate that better.
Oh
Okay.
man. All right.
That
Well,
was
that's
it.
6 minutes. Okay.
That was
Good.
it goes a little
Well,
faster.
yeah, it does.
but-
I think we're actually gonna do 5 minutes in season 2, right? 7 by 5s.
letting people in.
Yeah.
Yes, keeping it even tighter.
Even tighter. All right.
Okay.
Moving on.
Moving on.
So
Let me set the clock.
Okay.
Start.
Okay, great. Thank you. Episode 20, The Basics of Real Estate with Hannah and Trevor Chambers. My favorite realtors.
Mhm.
Yes, I will say it.
Oh, my sister is a wonderful realtor too.
She
We
sure
just haven't
is.
utilized her
She
as a
sure
realtor.
is. Hannah and Trevor, my favorite realtors. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. They're great.
Great.
So real estate. This
Yeah.
this was this is an interesting one because again, it's like, what does real estate have to do with like a podcast about intentionally thriving?
Yeah.
And I don't think that necessarily is going to apply to everyone. I don't think that if that's not something that someone is interested in learning about
Or
and
buying a house
or yeah,
making
or
one of the biggest decisions of your life, you
well, I
know?
mean, some people choose to rent, some people
Right,
choose to,
absolutely. Nothing
and
wrong with
there's so
that.
many factors that
Mhm.
go into it, and it's kind of a crazy real estate market. So again, there's just so many factors
Right.
that
But
play
how
into it.
does real
So
estate how is it worked into our podcast of intentionally thriving?
sure. Well, I mean, again, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but like
Mhm.
all of our episodes kind of revolve around what we talk about in episode 24. And so again, you can go back and listen to that. We'll recap it a little bit in this episode as well. But talking about the wheel of wellness, and there are those 8 categories. And so within each of these episodes, there's at least going to be one, if not more, kind of applications um, that we learn about that fall under each of those categories. So the 8 categories are the physical, emotional, spiritual, social. Oh man, let's see if I can remember. Financial, occupational, intellectual, environmental.
You got
Boom.
it.
There we
Nice.
go. So within real estate, there's a couple ways that it could fall in, but the two like most obvious ones are going to be occupational or financial.
Mhm.
So if someone is interested in learning more about real estate to get into that field or things like that, that could be under occupational. I could be figuring it out. I do not feel that calling to become a real
Shocking.
estate agent. There is very little about that is of interest to me. And to
Good to
be
know.
fair, there are people who look at what I do and be like, oof, that's the last
You
job
look at
I would
what you
ever.
do.
There's some
Just kidding.
days. There's some days. No,
Like 2 AM
at
on a Netflix set.
no, nothing wrong with
No.
Netflix, just that
Yeah, on that set.
particular show.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah, so for us it's been more the financial
Mhm.
category, and I think that if that is of interest to other people, that's probably where it's going to land in terms of like, is this a good source of passive
Mhm.
income? And I use the term passive very loosely
Yeah.
because it is work, it is time, it is energy, it is effort.
Yeah.
And it's an investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment too. So as we talk about this more in future episodes of retirement, your 401k, your Roth IRA, your different forms of like long-term investment, investing toward retiring, is property a good investment within that? And the
Mhm.
answer is could be. It depends. But that's kind of what we were talking about with Anna and Trevor, and I thought it was very interesting. They obviously have been able to really capitalize on that because of their backgrounds and their upbringings.
Mhm.
So I don't think like most people are going to hit the level that they are, and that's not even the point of this
Mhm.
podcast to be
No.
like you like every guest that we have on, you need to like be at
Absolutely
a
not.
10
Yeah.
at all these things.
But knowledge, like
It's
to
knowledge,
learn more. I
exactly.
feel like you could come out of it and learn more about how you could use real estate. You could come
Mhm.
out of it and know more about how real estate could work for you.
Yeah.
You could also come out of it and just say, realtors are just people. Like, don't be scared of them. They are helping you make a huge decision. And there is
Yeah.
an element of like things that are maybe out of your knowledge or out of your control, but you can ask questions. You can take
Mhm.
take the reins back. And I think a lot of good realtors want you to do that. Not be mean or ugly, but
Yeah.
to ask questions and to team up with them and come alongside with them. I know.
And find the right fit.
Yeah.
That's a big thing
That's a
that
huge thing. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So I do think that Trevor and Hannah did a great job explaining to us like that process and what questions to ask, and then just knowing the market. I know that that's something that I hear all the time, like, oh, when the market goes down or when this goes down. There's so many elements playing into that, and that's something that a good realtor is going to take so much time to
Mhm.
investigate, to know, to be read up on things. I know my sister is constantly, reading and learning and knowing not just the market of America, but like the market of she'll know down to the street market, and what the neighbors sold or what the people up the road sold. So it's just, I think, very important to know what you are looking for and what knowledge you are coming to the table with about such a big item
Yeah,
as
because
real estate.
it is a big decision.
It is.
It's
It's
a
huge.
huge decision. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's a bigger purchase that you will make in your life.
Child. Just kidding. Well, I mean, yeah, we won't call them a purchase, but adopting or having
Right.
a child even is a huge
Sorry, a
investment. Investment.
yes, an investment that is not
Human.
human.
You know what I'm saying.
Ooh, saved by the bell. All right.
I am not putting that in the same
Moving on.
exact.
All right, episode 21.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Nathan and Justine. That was we haven't been able to hang out with them since college, so that was really cool. Oh, have you hit the time? You have hit the time. Okay, good. Shoot, I didn't want to jump the gun too soon. But no, that was really cool to get to connect with them. I like them a lot. And
This
I
is
think
where
they
we
have
say
a lot of really good.
Yeah.
What?
I was gonna say this is where the podcast gets selfish for us because
wildly
we
selfish.
get to meet and reconnect with people that we just have enjoyed knowing or see thriving or know that they went through something, and we get to ask them really personal questions.
It's true.
Without any apologies. It's amazing.
It's not like awkward and random, like
Right.
if you just called someone up and it's like, hey, I'm gonna ask you all these super personal questions, they'd be like, what is this? On a podcast you can totally do that and it's normal.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
That gives us the license.
Okay, so we talked about contentment, finding joy, finding contentment. That's a toughie, man. That's toughy. And I think they are able, Justin and Nathan were able to talk about that, I think, from a really interesting perspective from a few angles. One, the fact that like they are based out of Las Vegas. And again, like I think a lot of people associate Las Vegas with
100%.
more just stuff, material, just like, the glitz and glam of it. And I think that can be a very fleeting thing. I think of the old Hebrew story of like Solomon, who, or the book of Ecclesiastes from the Hebrew, and it opens and it talks about, and historians traditionally assign and associate the book of Ecclesiastes with Solomon, who's this guy who just got all of this stuff and accrued all of this wealth, built this enormous empire, had multiple wives and women and things like that, like someone who experienced everything that they could experience on earth, and in all ways, shapes, and forms. And he comes, like, in this book, he kind of documents and assigns, like, hey, this is kind of the big takeaway that I've learned in going through this experience, through experiencing all these things. And it's like, you know what? It's like good to it's good to enjoy things and enjoy your life, but at the same time, like, really, what's the most important thing in walking away with? And it's not the stuff, because the stuff goes away.
Right.
The car will break down eventually. The house will fall apart or become it's like figuring out what is the most important thing. And for him, and like, we kind of have connected with this too in our life, he assigns it to, like, really it boils down to your relationships. And ultimately, for us, first and foremost, he assigns it to, like, your relationship with God, that spiritual connection, again, within the categories, the wheel of wellness would be under spiritual. But I think then after that, it's like the relationships that you have formed and built with those around you, you know, in your marriage, it's your spouse or your children or your family or your friends or like that's the stuff that has impact. And again, that's not to put down or say like don't enjoy experiences. Like if a like having a nice car is something that like brings you some joy, and again I use the term joy loosely, not in the sense of like I'm finding my ultimate satisfaction in this thing,
right.
but you know, a lot of people, whether like, you know, maybe they have an association with a certain type of cars because of a relationship they had with a parent, you know, like, oh man, my dad had this car, and you know, I associate really fun memories with that thing.
That's true.
And so, you know, this item helps bring some memories of that. Like, that's great. That's wonderful.
Right.
I'm not putting that down. But at the same time, like that cannot be the source of your joy, and stuff can never be the source of your joy and contentment,
because it will change.
Because
and can
it will
I give
change.
a personal testimony of that?
Go for it.
So we had a situation where our child who, and I don't want to put her down and I don't want to like have this hang over her head, but she drew on some walls in the middle of the night. And
yes, she did.
And by some walls, I mean 15 walls. I mean, this woman,
Just walls and doors.
I will say, when she does something, she does it thoroughly and she does it right.
Man, with a red permanent marker.
All the way. So I do want it to be said that she, if you're going to do it right. But we are going to have a painting party next week, Justin and I, because it won't come off.
Nope.
But if my joy and trust and hope was in my house, you know, which is the biggest purchase you'll ever make, like we just talked about, besides the child.
Way to tie it in. That's good.
Then I would have lost it. I mean, it wasn't beautiful. Like we were both crying because Justin was gone and it was 11:30 at night. I thought she had been asleep. I was asleep. It was not the best situation.
No.
But all that to be said is like, it's still stuff. It's still at the end of the day, not something that I mean, thank God she didn't draw on our artwork or the other things, but
at
it's still stuff.
But I mean, hopefully what she takes from this and sees is like how you worked through that with her and how we responded to it. And it's like, I mean, obviously, was that a good thing that she did? No, it was a childish, foolish thing to do, but she is also a child. So it's learning and teaching through that. But what's really going to matter more is the relationship with her and helping to teach her, hey, this is how we work through that. And then seeing our response as well.
That's huge.
Like that is really what's going to last. And that's going to have the impact long term.
That's a good point. Like even me looking back, I don't regret my response. That's a really good point. Like it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't what it could have been, you know? And so I don't have to feel guilt or like shame or fear of like, oh my word, I lost it on my daughter or something like that. That's a really good point. And I think that's because I didn't have that. Even though I value it and I want to take care of it, it wasn't my source of joy. So I really appreciate that. That's encouraging, actually.
So thank you, Nathan and Justine, for helping us on that front. Woo! So many other things we could say about that one.
And we ran out of time.
But we ran out of time. So we're going to move on.
Go listen to it. It was great.
Yeah, it was great. Episode 22, How to Cultivate Adult Friendships with Jackson and Bree.
A fun episode.
Edwards. You talk about this one. You're so good about this. So actually, I will let people know this. Sorry, I'm so sorry. This episode that we recorded with them was almost 2 hours long. Okay, so we had to cut so much, which really was hard. So
it was a lot of fun stuff. We should just make a blooper.
One question that didn't actually make it into the podcast, but I did want to ask you because I think you were just so good at this. Jackson and Bree asked the question about like when we made the transition and we made the move, what was that like starting over? And I was only able to include like a little fraction of the answer that I had about like, you know, you have to put yourself out there. It's like it would have been easy for us to just sit there and let the people come to us. But I wanted to hear kind of
Would have been
your
easy, but not effective.
Yeah, exactly. We would have been waiting for
Actually,
a long time.
out of every place that I have lived, this would have been the one place it would have been, because they did do a great. They
That's
welcomed
true.
you to the
They did.
community and came to our door. So
That's true.
actually,
They
I
did.
should say,
But that's a little unusual. Yeah.
And that lady is not my best friend.
Right, exactly. So, can you walk me through and help me
Yeah.
understand, like, advice that you would have, or the experience that you personally went through? Because this is still very fresh for you. Like, what, a year and a half ago?
Absolutely. And it's still something I'm working on.
Absolutely.
And it's not a end all be all. And I think the biggest thing, and I know it made it into the podcast, is expectations of friendships.
Yes.
And expectations of yourself for friendships. So as we talked about with Brie and I used to be really, really close. And then I moved away and that changed stuff. You know, do we still text? Do we still love each other? Absolutely. Do we still call on occasion? Do I try to see her every time I'm up there, down there? Yes. But I think expectations of myself, that I'm in a new season. I've never had 2 kids before, last year. I've never had to move before.
Well,
I've never.
Same. So.
Yeah. Woohoo. So like those kind of things, I can't put the same expectation on myself as when I was, without kids, or in an area that had you grew up in, or an area I grew up in. Those kind of things just have a different expectation to put on them. So I think that was number one. Like, we moved to a place we knew not a soul besides our realtors, Hannah.
That's true. We did know our realtors.
But like, we knew no one, nothing, nada. And so I think that was a huge thing to put ourselves out there, like you said. And I did have a step up being an extrovert and making that such a priority. I mean, that was the highest priority. I didn't care if we had beds to sleep in. I didn't care if we had couches. We were going to have friends.
I did care about those things. So
you need balance, right?
We
balance
worked together
in
on
our
that.
marriage. So like, that was my highest priority in moving, because I knew we were losing a community, which was heartbreaking, and still is. I miss them. But I think that making that a priority, I heard from somebody, they texted me after this episode and said, like, me and my son, my 4-year-old son, we prayed before we went to a park to find a friend, and we met our best friends.
Wow.
Like,
that's cool.
That is how intentional I had to be. And actually the 4-year-old, she says, found her friend.
Aww.
Like, how sweet is that? Just to hear that story
cool.
from someone from this episode was just so heartwarming. And I think that's a huge part of it, is just putting yourself in places that you're going to have similar values as friends. That might be a church, that might be a certain activity, that might
That's
be
true, because we were very intentional even before making the move,
right?
Because Atlanta's a big city,
a huge city.
So,
and the suburbs,
so that's true. We were very intentional about like looking for an area where we knew, like, that there, for us, that there was a good church that we could be, where that there were people in a similar industry that just,
and not everyone is going to be your best friend, right? And so, like, I talked about getting a text phone number, and texting somebody. There have been times where I have not asked for a phone number, because I'm like, if I see them again, that would be awesome. We had a great conversation, but I don't see this being a healthy friendship for me to carry on. And so I have, not asked for it. But then when I have asked for it, every single time I have not had one person say no. Not one person. So let that be encouraging to you, because they can just delete your name. Like, you don't have to respond. So it's very small stakes.
It's true.
And then when I have had the joy of continuing a relationship from a quick meeting at a park or something like that, it is so special, and it is so cool, because often there are people that are in the same area as us. They're in the same location. I'm not driving 30 minutes to their house, those kind of things matter, especially in the season we're in. And that's what I mean, being realistic about your season, is how long can I drive? Like, how long is between nap times? How long is between work and nap times? Can they get to the same park as me within 5 minutes?
Well, I think it goes back to expectations, like you're saying, like defining realistic expectations of, like, what is friendship to me? What does that look like? Because if you have unrealistic expectations of a friendship,
it's not going to work. It's doomed to failure.
You're always going to be like, oh, I don't have any friends.
Right.
I don't,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really that's
I
really
would
good.
also really encourage people to go and listen to that episode
Yeah.
again. Especially like you were talking about this, and I thought it was really good. Like the rings of
Circle
friend,
of friends.
the
Yeah.
circle of friends, and how
Be
because
real.
I think that really
Because
can help with expectations.
expectations go both ways, right?
Yeah,
Like my expectation of you can be different from your expectation of you to me.
absolutely.
And so if I keep hitting a wall that my expectation is different than you, and this is in marriage, this is in every relationship with
Mhm.
my kids, every relationship, then I either need to change my expectation of you,
Mhm.
or in some respects say this isn't working out for
Yeah.
this season, so that has to, obviously not for you and me, but
Sure,
or
sure,
for
sure.
my kids even. No, but I think that is huge, that I didn't even grasp until this last year, that expectations, I can have every good expectation of someone else, but if it doesn't match up,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would definitely
Mhm.
I because this is I think is such a relevant,
Yeah.
prevalent topic for so many people,
Especially adults.
especially for adults,
Yes,
especially for
especially
adults who have maybe like transitioned to a new job or a new area or
kids.
away from family or things like
Mhm.
that. Like it's tough.
It
And
is.
so like validating that it is hard, but there is so much joy in being intentional about it and
Absolutely.
really focusing on building your community
And it's
and your
possible.
network.
Like,
Sorry,
it's
we are way over time on this
possible.
one. Okay.
Don't tell
But
yourself that it's too late for you, or I'll do it tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
We
Do it.
we need
Do
community.
it.
Like, we are humans that need other humans in our
Yes.
lives.
I completely agree.
Yes.
Okay, episode
Okay.
23
Oh,
with
Aaron
Brian
Arnold. Didn't he look
Arnold. Yeah,
great?
he looked great.
He looked so great.
Yeah.
Artistic journey,
Yeah,
artistic
pursuing your
path.
artistic path. We
So
don't know anything about this.
right. Well, let's not talk only about us.
No,
But
I know. I just
Brian, it was so cool to hear his journey, because I think something that I loved and wish we had talked about even more was that he utilized maybe something that was not a strength and created it into a strength. That
what do you
his,
mean?
well, because he was talking about maybe some ways that he got distracted, or ADHD, or
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
those kind of things that maybe he wouldn't have thrived at a desk job. Maybe he wouldn't have
Mhm.
thrived in I mean, obviously he has to sit for hours and edit. So, but he can
There
make his
is
own
that.
schedule. He could go on these exciting adventures, and so he
Mm.
knew not just his strengths. And I did hear recently that, like, you should really focus on your strengths and try to raise them. So if your strength is at a 6 or 7, like, try to level it up. But it's also important to be aware of your weaknesses. Maybe not
Yeah.
focuses on them, but like, be aware that I am, and they're okay. Like, it's okay that he
Yeah.
is not going to thrive at a desk job with a boss, like,
Mhm.
and he made it work. And I love that he had support of his family, and that he had community and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's good.
That's, again, huge to have community, because it is very lonely, as you know,
Yeah.
to start a business.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point again about, like, where do you find balance in that? Because
Mhm.
yes, 100% you want to know what your strengths are
Mhm.
and grow and improve those. But even in your weaknesses, like, how do you because it's not that you try to stop growing even in
Mm.
those areas
Sure.
to make them less weak, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's an interesting one, is, like, finding balance in improving your strengths, but do you just then, like, forget about your weaknesses
Mhm.
and be like, I'm weak in those things. I'm gonna move on. I'm just gonna
Right.
focus on my strengths. Or do you try to grow in those areas? And I think Brian's actually a good example in that because, he talked about, like, the business side is not necessarily something that was, like, a really strong strength for
Yeah.
him. And I
You
can
can relate
understand
to
that. I can relate to
that.
that. But, just for us and how it played out, like, we
Mm.
kind of had to grow
Mm.
in that area. We were
Mhm.
forced to be in a position where we were stretched.
Sure.
And I feel like now, I mean, I by no means am like, "Oh, I'm a
Right.
pro in this
Right.
thing."
But it's less scary.
But it's
You've
less
done it.
scary,
Yep.
and, like, in working with, my partner and some of the other businesses, like, who is I understand, like, he is much better at that role.
Mhm.
But because I now know a little bit more, it's a lot easier for me to be able to collaborate on that front,
Yeah.
even though I'm not like, "This,"
Mhm.
I'm gonna be the CFO. I'm never gonna be the CFO of an organization, okay? But I will be able to more clearly communicate
Yeah.
to a CFO from maybe
Yeah.
another role.
Yeah.
But yeah, again,
Yeah.
that's always an interesting
Yeah.
thing too, is like finding
Mhm.
balance within that.
And we
just
talk
saying,
about this often. It is just as important to put things on a list as to take them off. So
mm,
to put them on a list of like options, it's just important to take off your options. Like if you're
yeah,
sitting there and saying, I have an endless supply of options, first of all, no, you don't. Second of all, like it is important to say, I don't want to do that. I don't need to put that pressure on myself. I don't, and that's for high achievers, or type A people or
mhm,
perfectionists, which, obviously bring its own things to work on. But I think it's important to just sit. I love pros and cons lists, right? You know
mhm,
that about
yep,
me.
yep.
I love them.
I think they can be
I
very
make
helpful.
them unconsciously in my head. And so to put something on a cons list means to or to take something off a list means to like release it, like to release that burden. Certain things you can't,
Mhm,
right? Like my
yeah.
boss told me to do 3 things. I'm going to release 2 of them. Goodbye. Like,
Yeah,
no.
it doesn't really work that way. That's
But
funny. That's
there
funny.
is an element of saying like this might not be my strengths. Can you help me work through this better, or ask for help, or ask for
Yeah.
more clarity or something like that. And the sooner, this is something I struggle with, like the sooner you can ask for help, the sooner you
Yeah.
can like put up a red flag or make awareness, the better. Like,
And that's hard too, because like, do you
why?
try to take initiative to figure it out
Mm,
yourself and to work through it?
I think we are
You know what I mean?
asking more
Or
questions than answering them right now.
so that's like 9 podcast topics that we're
Yeah.
gonna, like I said, this is a
Yeah.
very selfish podcast for us,
Yeah.
where we like ask
Right.
questions and do
Right.
topics that like we
Right.
don't know, guys. We don't have it all
Yeah.
figured out.
And I hope this
That's why we're
helps
doing
you
this.
to hear us process, to give yourselves freedom to process,
Yeah.
and to ask questions and to go back and forth. Well, yeah, I need to, I need to do this, but in this situation, that's a horrible idea,
Right. Well, that's why I think the
And
concept of balance is so important,
Mhm.
because whenever you see a balancing act,
Mhm.
very rarely are you ever going to see the person like stay absolutely on like the perfect fulcrum of it staying balanced. It's adjustments.
Mm.
It's always adjustments. It's going a little to the left and being like, whoop, I'm starting to, and then you kind of you course correct a little bit and you go
Mm.
then. But the thing is, I think this speaks well to what you were saying. The sooner you can course correct, the less extreme that swing becomes. If someone, you think of like I don't know. I don't balance on things, so for a living, so I don't know, but
Our
I'd be like,
next, our next guest will be a balancer
yes,
on
a trapeze
circus. I do
artist.
know someone who is in the circus.
Oh, do you?
Ooh, I should ask her.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We'll ask her all about being a trapeze artist. No, but I mean, again, like the more paddling a canoe again, because I can't think of
Sure.
another
Okay.
like
Yeah.
personal experience, but like very rarely are you going to be able to like hit an absolute perfectly straight line
Mm.
as you're paddling a canoe.
Mm.
So, you take a few swipes on one side and then
Right.
you do another, like you're
Right.
kind of course correcting within that. But if you let yourself go too far to one direction, it's a lot harder to course correct to get back on
Wow.
path. So the sooner we can stay balanced within adjustments here, a little adjustment there, I think that's, in my opinion, closer to what kind of finding that balance looks like.
Wow.
But
You know,
what do
that
I know,
that
man?
makes me think of like a finish line. It's not a finish dot. It's a finish line,
Hmm.
right? And so when you're looking at that finish line, maybe the further away it looks more like a dot, but the closer you get to it, and this is again speaking to the perfectionists out there, or people that have experienced trauma and are fearful to fail, or
Yeah.
have these kind of anxiety, things like that, things that we struggle
Yeah.
with. It's very easy to be like, if I don't end on that perfect point,
Mm,
I'm a failure.
mm,
Like the whole line is the finish line, right? It doesn't
interesting.
matter if you end like to the right or the left,
Well,
it's
I
the
guess it
finish
depends
line.
on the type of race you're doing. If you have individual lanes,
You
you
should
just
stay in
like
your
jump
lane.
into someone else's lane and
Fine, the analogy isn't perfect, but I think you're right. The course correction is huge, and there's gonna be course correction.
there
And
is 100%.
I struggle with that. No, I really
Yeah, I
do.
hear you.
I really do. I set my path and I want it to go that way. And I mean, I I do adapt. I have to.
So this is a less of a 6x6 episode than just like a Justin and Stephanie process episode. Actually, but that's kind of
That's what a
what
6x6
these
is.
is like working
Yeah.
through, and sometimes it's finding examples in our own life of like, oh, we've done this well, or like we want to grow in this, or sometimes like, man, I just have more questions because there's so much to this topic.
Yeah.
All right. So last one, episode 24.
one.
What is wellness?
So this one was a lot of education about
Yeah.
the
The
wheel
wheel
of
of
wellness
Mhm.
and where it came from and how we've created our 8, which I think is great.
Yeah.
From the up to 12 that you've seen, and
Yeah.
we've
It's evolved
Yeah.
over time, but yeah, I think I
Mhm.
feel pretty good about the
Yeah.
8 that we've kind of
Right.
dialed in on.
And you now have gestures for all of them so that we can remember.
Yes. For me, I have little gestures based on the icons
Which is great.
that I will not be showing you.
Oh man,
That's just
next
for me.
time. That was
No.
good. But I think that it's already helped our communication.
It
right?
absolutely has.
Because we were able to talk through things in a very safe space and not a
Yes.
accusatory, oh, your physical health is at a and mine,
Yeah.
not that we're about equal. No. So
Yeah, we both rated pretty low in that
yeah.
one.
So I think it was a very safe place. It was cool because you rated me higher than I rated me in most of them. And I
It's a
think
good
vice
thing
versa.
too. Like again, and you have to come to this exercise with grace when because you're rating yourself, and then you're also rating your
Your
spouse
spouse,
if
you've
they
had
agree
spouse.
to it. Like you
That's
don't
good.
just rate people.
That's a life lesson. Don't
That's-
just go around rating people.
Yeah, don't just tell people
And
what
tell
to
them,
like. Let them
no.
ask you, hey,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me?
Yeah. Back in the day
Kidding.
with social media, you would rate your friends. You would
Really?
put them in before you got on social media. This was a real thing.
I got on social media like a year ago. I'm
No.
so old when it comes to social media.
But you would put your friends in like 9 squares and you would put them, and I would go around to all my friends and see where they rated me.
wow.
I mean, talk about not healthy. So I'm really glad
Yeah.
Facebook took that away. They did a whole bunch of stuff. They used to do
You were getting so
I know,
distracted
but this
right
is
now.
it's so interesting how those kind of things now is in my brain, and so I'm like, oh, where do my friends rate me? Obviously, they think about it because it was on social media, So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you rate for your friends, but don't rate
Well,
other people.
It's like your circles exercise. It's just
Yeah.
how public.
Except not petty. I feel like it was petty. I mean, we would go in and change it daily. Like it was not healthy.
Anywho,
So,
the wheel of
we got
wellness.
3.5 minutes left. So I feel like it was really healthy to go around and talk about it, go back and forth.
Well, and it opens up opportunity to be able to talk about like aspects of your life that again aren't gonna really come up in everyday conversation. Like a lot of times you're gonna talk about your physical or emotional or spiritual, maybe sometimes your social, but are you really asking your spouse and really dialing in on financial and occupational and or are you afraid to talk about financial? Like is that something that's kind of been a taboo topic in your marriage relationship, whatever it may be for yourself? And so the ability to give someone license, someone who's trustworthy, someone who is safe, someone who like is on your team, giving them the license to say, hey, let's go through each of these categories and each of these topics, even areas that you don't want to just walk up to them. I want to talk about finances, and you're going to put that person kind of off, like on the defensive right off the bat, as opposed to, hey, let's rate it. And sometimes it's a little embarrassing in rating and to be like, man, how am I doing in this category or this topic? And it's like, not good.
Yeah.
but now you have more awareness of that. That's the key. That's the
is.
trick. And to be like, okay, man, how is my physical health? That's not great. I do need to exercise more. I do need to eat better. I do need to sleep better, all these things. So
how?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Right, I know.
But yeah, I think that it was a really good exercise, and I like what you said last time in the way of doing it consistently and over and over again. Like these areas change. I mean, on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis, how you feel emotionally can change, or something can happen and your number can go down real fast. And just communicating that, especially to a spouse, but even just to yourself, is just as
Yes.
important. That, I'm having kind of a low day. I mean, I just put the slideshow together for my grandfather's funeral, and
Yeah.
to watch pictures of him declining was way more emotional than I thought it
Yeah,
would
that
be.
hit you hard.
That hit me hard. And I think that being aware, making you aware that
Mhm.
like something that I was going into kind of clinically and being like, I'm putting together a slideshow, do that,
Yeah.
every so often. So no big deal. And then for it to hit me that I'm going, to Connecticut soon, and he won't be there
Yeah.
is hard. So I think like just being aware of my emotional state in that. And like you said, maybe that's a little more obvious, but in every area, I think it was important to just communicate. And it challenged me, right? Because
Yeah.
intellectual is something that I feel like I could work on. So I'm going to start reading a book. It's not even like an intellectual book, but just the fact that I have a physical book
Nice.
that I'm working on is like makes me feel good.
That's really cool,
And maybe we'll
Stephanie.
take a little one number up my next time we review.
Hey, I'll already give
Goals.
you a higher point for
Wow.
just buying the book.
I have a book. I'll just carry it around with me. I'm smart.
You can borrow my glasses too if you like to
Oh,
look.
that's
Okay.
it.
Guys, that's it.
Mhm.
That is our season finale, but not really season finale. For season
Our
1.
last.
It has been such a fun season 1. We have enjoyed it so much. We have learned so much from doing this. We are so excited for season 2, as well as the holiday specials that are coming up.
It'll be great.
Yeah. So we'll
look
one
out.
for
They're coming to
Halloween,
you.
Thanksgiving, and Christmas. We will be dropping one episode 1 week before that. And like I said, go back, listen to episode 24, where we talk more about the Wheel of Wellness and the questionnaire form, about like just some exercise. They're free, that are very helpful for communication, for being able to answer that question of what the podcast is all about, is like, am I surviving or am I thriving
That's right.
in my life? And, what do I want? What's my goal? What's my mission? Helping to understand that so that you can focus in on how to have a thriving life. That's the goal.
That's the goal.